First issue was at the end of his 7-year-old year, which I'm not sure what year that was. That was a long time ago. He jumped here at the Masters as a 7-year-old, I think in the meter 40 national division, and we took him home. He was fine, and a couple, maybe 2 weeks after he was home, I was just working him outside in our jumping field, and he went very lame on his right front. Long story short, I mean that same thing played out day after day. I'd work him 20-25 minutes fine, and he'd go very lame, and I'd get off of him. A lot of times take him into the barn to find someone else to come out and watch him jog, and then we'd jog him and he'd be sound, and I'd get on and ride him for a while, and he'd go. It was really unpredictable, kind of on and off, and again, long story short, it took about a year or more to diagnose what was wrong with him. And during that period, he was, at one time, the vets suggested to stall rest and no exercise, and he was in his stall, and we'd bring him out, let him graze a little bit every day, and he just got totally unfit, lost all of his muscle, and the condition worsened. It got to the point where you just put him on a lunge line and trot him 2 or 3 laps around, and he'd go crippled lame. And finally, a vet up at Washington State University in Pullman, Washington, Dr. Snyder, discovered the problem. It was a vascular blockage in his right front leg, the main vein that drains all the blood up out of his right front leg. He's grumpy. Had some sort of blockage in it, and so his body, you'd exercise him, the body would pump blood through the arteries down into the foot, and it would try to come back out of the foot and get back to the heart through the vein, and it couldn't, so it would build up pressure in his foot, and the pressure would cause lameness. So they did a lot of discussion with different vets, and they brought human cardiologists in for their opinions on this blocked vein issue, which is very rare in horses. And they decided to perform angioplasty, which is the balloons. Use them on humans to clean out arteries and veins and so on. And his vein was so expanded, so stretched out from having all that blood backed up in there, that it was very enlarged, and I think they used like 3 or 4 balloons to kind of feel like they were actually doing some good there, cleaning it out and breaking down whatever the obstruction was. And when they completed that process, Dr. Snyder called me up and he said, just take the horse home. We know what's wrong with him. He's been stalled up for months and months now. Let him be a horse. He can go out on grass, and he'll monitor his soundness. He said, I don't think I fixed him, but at least he can have a nice retirement or whatever. And so we brought him home, and right away we just put him back on our walker for a very short period to start with. I can't recall, maybe a minute or 2 minutes of walking. And we gradually increased that week by week, and we actually never looked back. He never limped again. Flexible it was his turn to go on the paddock, and the gal was grazing another horse right next to the paddock to keep him company. There was some commotion. The horse spooked and got away from her and ran off down the hill. And the farm was kind of on a sloping piece of property, and this paddock was at the top, and at the bottom was a major highway, and there was no gate on the farm driveway. So when the horse took off down the hill, my girl was smart, and she went after that horse that was loose and left Flexible in that paddock. And he, of course, went crazy, I think, with the commotion and being alone. And by the time she caught the other horse and got back to the paddock, he was standing in the paddock on 3 legs and scraped up and dirty and dusty, and he obviously had some sort of a fall. There was a big, at the very bottom side of the paddock, right before the fence, there was a big ravine for water runoff during storms and so on, and we guessed that he fell down into that creek. He was probably running with his head up like he does, screaming, and he didn't notice that there was a giant boulder ditch there. But yeah, so we took him into the vet. He was like 3-legged lame, and there was a clinic nearby there. They x-rayed his shoulder, I think it was his left shoulder, and he had fractured his scapula, which is another very unusual injury for a horse. But apparently when they fracture their scapula or their shoulder blade, a lot of times the nerve, it's called the suprascapular nerve, runs over the top of that shoulder blade, and the particular fracture he had a lot of times affects that nerve or damages that nerve, and when that nerve is damaged, it stops feeding the muscles in the shoulder, and then they all atrophy. They just shrink down to nothing, and the horse loses motion of that leg. It's the term or the condition is called shoulder Sweeney. So the fracture was a serious problem. We rested him and brought him home. Flew him home when he recovered and was out of pain to the point where he could get loaded onto a pallet and onto a plane. And then when we got him home, we noticed that this left front shoulder was just shrinking. I mean, the muscles were just going away. And so then, then we realized that, okay, he has this shoulder Sweeney condition, and so he was, at that point the vet said, well, he's finished. He'll never jump again if he can just keep moving around comfortably. Possibly they could figure out a way to collect him, so he can carry on his genes as a stallion. Somewhere along the line, he started to show some increase in his musculature on his left shoulder, and again, that's a long time ago, but yeah, kind of out of nowhere, we started noticing, I think that shoulder is starting to gain a little muscle back, because we were walking him and hand walking him and grazing him and putting him a little bit on the walker, and once we noticed that the muscles were starting to come back or recover, we kind of the same thing when he had his blockage in his vein, we put him on our Euro walker, and we started building up the amount of time he was exercising, and once we started moving forward, we never looked back. And then the most recent of the career-ending injuries occurred last summer, right after the Continental here in June. We took him home, and we typically do 2 weeks of rest after the Continental, then we come back for the last 2 weeks, North American and Pan American. And we had him home for a few days, and I was working him, and I noticed he felt off behind. And it took us a week or so. We had previous information with that front leg, so we recognized the pattern. It was the same exact pattern, except he would only take 2.5-3 minutes of trot, and he would just cramp up, and his hind end would be really, really uneven and really lame on his right hind. So we made an easy decision not to bring him back up here. We left him home, and my vet worked on him more and did some more research and diagnostic work, and they ultrasounded his hind end and found some very significant clotting in the arteries in his right hind leg. Starting at the aorta that feeds the whole hind end of the horse, there was quite a large clot on the right side of the aorta that fed the right hind leg, and then there was more clots in the femoral artery and the internal iliac, and they were all plugged up pretty good. And they came up with really the only solution they felt like gave the horse a chance to just have a nice retirement, was to lay him down on a table and perform surgery and actually clean out some of those arteries that were plugged or that were clotted. The surgery was going to, I think I said was going to be about 5 hours is what they guesstimated, and they weren't going to have the ability to access about 50% of the clotted arteries. They couldn't even access them. So they said, we'll do the surgery, we'll clean out the best we can the arteries we can access. If the horse recovers from surgery, fine. We'll put him on blood thinners, and if everything goes well, hopefully this condition will at least have slowed it down, and we'll give him a little more blood to that right hind leg, and he can retire comfortably. My life with this horse, I was like, I don't think so. I mean, he's not finished. There's got to be a way. And I talked with Shelley, my wife, and we talked with Harry and Molly again, and we all agreed, we can't give up on this horse because he has defied the odds so many times, and there's no reason why he can't do it again. He was 17 years old last year, so we all agreed that laying him down for 5 hours for a surgery was not something we wanted to do. That's very risky, especially for an older horse. There's many potential complications and side effects just from putting a horse out and laying him down that long. So I think I decided, let's just skip the surgery. Why don't we get the blood thinners and get going on the blood thinners, and see what happens. And the same routine we'd done, 2 previous times when he was supposedly finished. We put him on that walker, and we started walking him, and then I started exercising him, just very short little trots, not taking him to that threshold that we had before, about 2.5 minutes of solid trotting. I'd just do maybe 1 minute here and there, and we didn't have many setbacks. I mean, there were a few times he cramped up, and I recognized it right away, and I'd back off, and we just gradually built him up to the point where finally I was cantering. I got where I was cantering him and working him for much, much longer than 2.5 minutes. So in my mind, it seemed like, okay, these blood thinners must be doing something. They told us, the vets said, the clots won't ever go away. We can stop them from getting bigger, but they'll never go away. So whatever it was, the blood thinners were helping, and he got to the point there near the end of October last year where I felt like I wanted to try jumping him, because I was like hand galloping, and he was getting very good. I was riding him twice a day. In the thermal, he jumped some Grand Prix, and then our dream was, maybe he could jump the $1 million class if everything went great at the end of thermal. He jumped that, and he jumped a fabulous clear round, and I think we all cried together after his clear round. And that was the Sunday at the very end of the thermal surgery. There was just significant change. 60-70% of the clots were gone. They had no idea where they went, or what happened to them, or how they dissolved or broke loose, or they'll never know, but they were gone. And he had significantly more blood flow to those muscles in his right hind leg, and now he's full throttle. He's full power, and we keep him on the blood thinners when he's at home, and we take him off 7 days before an FEI show.